So I'm sure you guys have noticed by now, if you've watched literally one of these episodes of Paint and Talk, that I am something of a perpetual fence sitter. And I don't mean that in terms of like I never want to choose a side because I like am too scared to or something. I mean that in terms of like, I am somebody who tries to see things from all angles, which means that I'm the annoying guy. When you ask me a question, I'm never going to give you a super definitive answer, right? Maybe that's annoying, but I think that it's good because I don't like being the guy that's going to make like a definitive statement. You know what I mean? Like, I hate being the person who is like, I dislike X and I'm going to 100% stand on that forever. Maybe I've done that sometimes, but I don't think I do it that much, or at least I try not to, because I think that it's good to kind of, have a little bit more of a nuanced perspective. With that being said, one thing that I don't do that with at all, and the thing I hate more than anything, is what I refer to in my head, and maybe there's an actual way to refer to this. A lot of you watching are way smarter than me, so give me the name if you know it. I refer to it as label dumb. The label dumb of like, labels, boxes, these ways that we all come up with to sort of trap ourselves into our own heads. I hate these more than anything else because I truly do believe that they hold us back from being what we need to be. And I believe this on a personal level, on a philosophical level, on a moral level. I really think that they encourage people to be closed-minded because I think they're easy. You know what I mean? I think like politics is a great example of this. You guys probably have noticed that I try to avoid politics in the show just because like I feel like it's like that's not what I'm trying to do here. You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to solve the world while I paint. I just want to kind of have a nice time talk with you all. But also because I think that like I don't really label my politics personally. I could go online and take like a political compass test and find the quadrant and the niche ideology that I fit into and join the subreddit and then, slippery slope from there. You don't know where I'll be a year from then. It won't be good though, I could totally do that. I think a ton of people do that. And fine, if you do that, no worries, you know what I mean? Like a ton of people do it. I just think that it's bad because, let's say I take that test, let's say I do that, and I get something on a really far side of one of the quadrants, right? Maybe I'm in like one of the top corners or something. I then would be in my own head, like it would encourage me to be lazy to the point where when I see something that's a viewpoint that is opposing it, I get to dismiss it without doing any of the actual work. Like, you see something you disagree with, once you can attach a label to it and go, oh, I already know I disagree with that label, I'm gonna disagree with this thing, it makes you not do half the work you would otherwise to go, do I actually disagree with this? What do I think about this? You know what I mean? And I feel like when, that's where like I think the term ideologue kind of comes from, which nowadays people just sling that at like whatever they don't like, which is another example of you're labeling something and then when you just don't like it, it's easy to throw a word at it. You know what I mean? Unless, to me, if somebody can't describe the specific things they like or don't like about something, and, away from politics, whether it is political, whether it is, anything in the world, if you can't break down for me and describe why you think it's actually bad in a real way, not just because it's this thing that I don't like, I don't take it that seriously. And I will say, there's a caveat here for sure that I have noticed that when people do categorize things in their own life, they usually do a good job. Like, I'm not here to say that there's no value in that. If you find yourself to be agreeing with one perspective a ton, it only makes sense that if you agree with the first 15 points of it, the 16th point, you'll probably agree with it more than the first point of the opposite perspective. I completely get that. And for that reason, I do, understand why people see value in these labels, in these things. I still would just rather do the work though, because I find that so often, especially as people get older, they just box themselves completely and utterly into one thing and let that ride forever, I think we have, what's that term? Confirmation bias. I think people see that as being a thing that only agrees in like, you know, I don't know, science or like sometimes politics or whatever. They see this thing that agrees there. I think confirmation bias exists like everywhere. Like even down to labeling myself of like what kind of artist I am, right? Or what kind of, I don't like that term for myself. I think it sounds very snooty. Be like, oh, I'm an artist. But even down to like what my favorite medium to work in is, right? I don't like labeling that because I think it'd be really easy for me to go like, I do paint and talk, therefore I'm a painter. But then, if I were to do that, all I would spend my time doing from then on is finding evidence of why I'm a painter and not looking around at the other parts of myself, you know what I mean? Maybe I could discover within myself that I love making films too. I have never picked up a camera in my life other than making these videos, but hey, that could be in there, and if I box myself now into the I'm a painter, then maybe I wouldn't discover that the same way because I've already done the work, you know what I mean? And I think that's like the dangerous part about labels is I don't know, I feel like on the one hand, we don't attach our identity to everything, but we will. You know, 100% you can be somebody who is a painter and you will still find great ways to do other things. I mean, I have in the past. I've been like for a while I thought I was only into comic books, and then over time, you know, even though I gave myself that label really sternly, I opened myself up to be like, oh, I like other things too, you know? And that's fine, right? That's a kind of I don't know if it's a point against the way I look at labels, but I do think it is I do think it's definitely maybe an argument that it's not as big of a deal perhaps as I make it. And I get that. But with that being said, I do still think that like maybe you won't, it's not that you're gonna like shelter yourself off from other perspectives. It's that you're gonna work really hard to validate your perspective. So let's go back to the example of me being like, okay, I paint and talk every day, therefore I am a painter, and that's the type of medium that I work in most, right? Which has been a question people ask. I mean, like, when I tell people just in my personal life, oh, I make stuff, you know, they'll kind of be like, what's your medium? And then I'll be like, I do a bunch of different things. I'll list off a couple of things I've done. And they'll be like, what's your main one? And for a while I struggled with that because like, as much as, yeah, I paint here with all you guys, I also, these videos are more what I view to be the art piece and the paintings I make in them. You know what I mean? And then on top of that, I make other videos too that are definitely more, I mean, I don't spend any money on them, but they're more high budget, if that makes sense. More effortful. I don't know, what's the word for higher production value? That's the term I was looking for. They definitely are. So are those the main medium? Is it the stuff I write that I don't post online anymore? Like, what is it, right? And people, you know, so for a while, it's just like I do everything, but people want the singular medium. So let's say that I cave to this and I start going, I'm a painter. I just paint, I show them this channel, I'm like, see, I'm a painter. That would be easy, and honestly, maybe people would think I'm cooler, because I feel like saying that makes you sound way cooler than being like, I make stuff on the internet. Then I feel like their mind goes to like, okay, so this guy's doing get ready with me TikToks. But like if I was like, I am a painter, I feel like that sounds so much better than the way I describe it now. I think I just sound like I make YouTube shorts of Reddit stories over Minecraft parkour when I tell people that I do stuff online. That's a whole side tangent though. Let's say I do accept that label though. Maybe I will someday, right? I think what would happen is not so much that I dismiss every other type of art that I could be making, but it won't, when I'm walking around in the world, let's say I see a beautiful tree, I'll see that tree and go, how would I interpret this tree as a painter? Because that's already attached to my identity. When maybe my natural instinct otherwise would have been to look at the color on the leaves and go, this looks like that one movie I watched, the way they color graded that one shot, and then be like, maybe I could use this in a video, or maybe I should make a short film about a tree, or maybe instead of observing the tree how it looks, I see a little girl under the tree crying, and you know, like, I don't know, her mom's yelling at her or something, and maybe another part of my brain would have gone to, what's the story there? What could I write about that? But none of that will happen now because I told myself I'm a painter. So I'm only searching for ways that a painter would look at this tree. And I think that's really dangerous. And I mean, obviously in that case, you know, who cares? It's a painter and a tree. Like I understand that me saying that's dangerous seems a little bit bizarre, but I don't mean that just about a painter and a tree, because I think that happens with everyone all the time with everything. I've met so many people where they say, I'm an engineer, and they'll try to only look at the world from an engineer's perspective. But maybe the next great invention doesn't come from an engineer. The next great invention needs to come from a cobbler. You know what I mean? That's also why I try and keep friends around me who do so many things. Like, I do find that I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I have so many friends in the STEM fields. And I do like that. Those people I've just always gotten along with so well since I was a kid. But, you know, I try to keep friends who are maybe into like sports or into other things, because even though I might have a limited range of conversations I can have with those people because we don't share a ton of interests, I just think it's important, because people have this way of thinking like, and I think this is normal, I do this too, like it's almost like all your thoughts come with an inherent narcissism because they're yours. And that makes sense, just in the way that you would really love a box you made more than a box you bought from Hobby Lobby. You're gonna like an idea you had more than a lot of other people's ideas because it's your idea. I think that makes sense. I think that's fine. And I don't think that that's a negative thing. This isn't something, I do this too. I do this with all my thoughts, right? I mean, like, I think Paint&Talk maybe would have happened a lot sooner if it wasn't one of my friend's thoughts, if it was my thought instead. Maybe I would have taken it more seriously if I thought of this original idea as opposed to my friend who thought of like the first, you know, kind of draft of this that came out on my channel a year ago. Like, I think that makes sense, and I think that happens. But with that sort of being the case that we look at our thoughts as being not better than other people's, but the way that we kind of appreciate our own thoughts, I think oftentimes more than other people's, I do think that because of that, it's important to keep people around you who are going to have super different thoughts and to not label yourself when you're around those people. Because, for example, let's say you're an engineer around a bunch of other people and you have in your mind, I am an engineer, I think like an engineer, and then your friend who's maybe, I don't know, kindergarten teacher would be like, I think that the way that this X technology is being applied is terrible. As an engineer, you're going to go, this thought is dumb because I'm an engineer. I know more about technology than they ever could. In this case, you are a mechanical engineer, perhaps. I don't know exactly what type. Like, you're going to look at it that way because, and that makes sense. Yeah, an engineer would know more than a kindergarten teacher. But a fish didn't discover water. You know what I mean? You need to be able to, like, I feel like keep an open enough mind to, even though you're going to inherently, I think, value your own thoughts a little bit more than these other ones, and that's fine. I think it's also super important to keep enough of an open mind to be like, well, maybe I shouldn't value this more than my own thought, but maybe I should try and critique it as an engineer. And then now you have an engineer and a kindergarten teacher having a perspective about technology, and it's not the person making it or the person applying it speaking, it's both of them speaking at once. I think that's important. I think that's awesome to do. And that's why I think that not over-labeling, but labeling at all, I think can be super dangerous. Because the second you put everybody into a box, now their ideas, the way they look at the world, will also exist within that box. And I think that once you break down those walls, you see just like that everybody has sick ideas all the time. I think that's one of the most interesting things to me that I've learned over the years, that your ideas don't mean anything. Like, I used to, when I was younger, be like, oh my God, I am a great writer because I have so many ideas for books, right? But I never actually wrote one of them. And I'm a far worse writer now than I would have been if I started writing earlier in my life. I thought coming up with these outlines and like stories in my head would make me a good writer someday, not realizing that I actually have to write. You know what I mean? And I think that's when I learned, like, oh, ideas are nothing. The skill, anybody can come up with a good idea, but the skills that it takes to make those ideas come to fruition is really what's valuable, I think. I think somebody could take I think these paintings are a great example of it. I think sometimes I have a cool idea for a painting, but it doesn't make a good painting because I'm still not a good painter, even though I've been here 122 days at this point. I know, it's sad. But I think a good painter could take bad ideas and make better paintings than a bad painter with good ideas. Same thing with books. I think it was Brandon Sanderson, the sci-fi writer, who said once, he was like, a good writer could take any idea and make a readable, enjoyable book. A bad writer could take the best idea and fumble it, though. And I think that's so true, you know? I don't know how this topic got to this point, but yeah, labels are bad and ideas are worthless, as the very pessimistic conclusion of today. This is the painting. So it is orange, yellow, and red. So I said yesterday I wanted to try and tighten up the color palette, right? So that's what I'm doing. And I also think that having one of the colors be the messy part of it is good. These eyes, I don't know about how these eyes look though. I really don't know how I feel. Like, they gross me out, which I wanted, but they also don't get me engrossed, which is what I wanted more so. That was some wordplay there, if you didn't notice. I try and stay humble about my wordplay, but, you know, what can I say? No, but yeah, jokes aside, this is the painting. Go check it out over on Instagram. See me type up a little bit. I'm finding with some of the paintings I've done in the past, I can talk about them on the spot. This series in specific, the juxtaposition series, I've titled it, I'm having a really tough time talking about them after I finish them. Which, I don't know, I just think that's interesting. But yeah, go check this out over on the Instagram. And until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Seiss. This is Paint and Talk episode 122. I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.